"Father," the young man said one morning, standing tall but restless, "give me my share of your property now." His father looked up from the olive tree he was pruning, the shears slowing in his hand. His weathered face tightened, eyes full of silent questions. Around them, the early sunlight warmed their land, the land passed down through generations. Sheep grazed peacefully. Workers moved in the distance. But now, this request pierced the peace like a sudden storm. The younger son, no older than 20, shifted his feet. He was handsome and full of energy, but his eyes wandered often, beyond the hills, past the fields, toward the world he longed to see. His older brother, who had always stayed and worked without complaint, stood silently behind him, arms folded. He said nothing, but his jaw tightened. "You want your inheritance now?" the father asked, voice low but steady. "Yes," the son answered firmly. "I don't want to wait until you die. I want to live my life, father. I want to explore, to see the world, to be free." The older brother frowned. "You'd throw away what we've worked for just to chase wild dreams?" The younger son didn't reply. His mind was made up. The father sighed deeply. For a moment, his heart broke. But he also saw something else, painful but true. His son would not stay, not with peace. To force him would only drive a wedge deeper between them. And so, with a heavy heart, the father divided his property. He gave the younger son his share, bags of silver and gold, animals, and belongings. The son packed quickly, barely able to hide his excitement. He hugged his father briefly, gave a nod to his brother, and walked away without looking back. The road ahead was wide and open. His feet barely touched the ground. He was free. In the village, neighbors whispered, how could he shame his father like that? Why would the father let him go? Such a waste. But the father said nothing. Each day, he stood quietly by the gate, eyes searching the horizon. Meanwhile, the older brother worked harder than ever. He didn't speak much anymore. He buried his anger in the soil with every seed he planted. The younger son traveled far and wide. New cities, bright lights, new friends who cheered his wealth and laughed at his jokes. He stayed in fine inns, wore soft clothes, and spent like a prince. He felt alive, important, powerful. But behind the laughter and the wine, a whisper always remained. His father's face. The stillness of home. The warmth he left behind. He ignored it. The city that once sparkled now felt cold and empty. The younger son sat on the edge of a broken fountain, his fine clothes stained and torn. The coins in his purse were gone. The so-called friends who once drank and laughed with him were nowhere to be found. He had given them feasts, gifts, and wine. But now that he had nothing left, not one of them stayed. Just one more coin, he had begged a man he once called a friend. The man laughed. Sorry, friend. Can't help someone who wasted everything. And with that, he turned and disappeared into the crowd. Days turned to weeks. The city that once welcomed him now closed its doors. Hungry, tired, and alone, the young man walked from street to street, looking for work. But times were hard. A terrible famine had struck the land. People were losing their jobs, their homes, and even their families. At last, someone pointed him toward a farmer outside the city who needed help. I'll take anything, the son said, his voice dry like sand. The farmer eyed him up and down. Fine, he said gruffly. You can feed my pigs. And so, the son, once clothed in silk and gold, found himself standing in mud, surrounded by animals that made him gag. The pigs snorted and rolled, eating pods from the trough. His stomach growled louder than the swine. He looked down at the pig food and thought, even this looks good now. That night, he curled up under a broken shelter. The stars above looked distant and cold. His hands, once soft, were rough and blistered. His feet ached. His heart ached more. He whispered to the wind, "What have I done?" His thoughts turned to his father's house. He remembered the bread, warm and soft from the oven. He remembered how even the servants there never went hungry. He covered his face and wept. I don't deserve to be called his son, he cried softly. But maybe, just maybe, he'll let me work as one of his servants." The next morning, as the sun slowly rose, the young man stood up. His legs trembled, his body weak, but his spirit was turning. "I will go home," he said aloud. "I will tell him the truth. I will say, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But please, take me back as a servant.'" He wiped his tears, took a breath, and began the long journey home. He didn't know what would happen. He didn't know if his father would even look at him. But he knew one thing: he couldn't live like this anymore. And with every step he took, something inside him changed. Not pride, not excitement, but hope. The road to his father's house was long and dusty. With every step, the son's heart beat faster. His sandals were worn out. His robe hung in rags. He hadn't bathed in days. His hair was tangled, his skin darkened by sun and dirt. He looked nothing like the son who had once walked away full of pride and riches. As he neared the edge of the village, he saw the hills he once ran across as a child. The fig trees, the vineyard, the well where he used to drink water after playing all day. Everything looked the same, but he felt like a different person. What if father slams the door? What if he doesn't even recognize me? What if I'm too late? He rehearsed his words again. "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm not worthy to be called your son. Please let me be your servant." He was still practicing when, far away on the road, a man stood watching. It was the father. He had been waiting. Day after day, he came out to the gate, looking down the road with eyes full of hope. The neighbors thought he was foolish. The older son said, "Why do you waste your time? He's gone." But the father never gave up. And on this day, his old eyes caught something, a figure walking slowly, shoulders bent, feet dragging. He squinted, then gasped. His heart jumped. That walk, that face, could it be? "My son," he cried. Without a second thought, the father lifted his robe and ran. Yes, ran. People gasped. Old men didn't run in public. It was shameful. But this father didn't care. Dust flew behind him as he rushed toward the broken boy. The son stopped. His heart froze. His coming. What do I say? Before he could speak, the father threw his arms around him, pulling him close. Tears fell freely. His hands held the boy's face, not minding the dirt or the smell. My son, the father whispered, holding him tight. The boy fell to his knees, trembling. "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm not worthy to be called your son." But the father didn't let him finish. "Quick," he shouted to the servants nearby. "Bring the best robe. Cover him. Put a ring on his finger. He is still my son. Put sandals on his feet. He won't walk like a slave in my house." He turned, eyes full of joy. "Prepare a feast. Kill the fattened calf. Tonight, we celebrate. For my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and now is found." Laughter, music, dancing, all began that evening. The house that had grown silent lit up with joy. But someone wasn't smiling. From the field, the older brother watched in silence. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm orange glow over the fields. The older brother wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked back from the farm. He had been working all day, plowing, planting, managing workers. As he neared the house, he heard laughter, singing, the sound of drums and dancing. He stopped. "Music." He called over one of the servants. "What's going on? Why is there a celebration?" The servant smiled. "Your brother has returned. Your father welcomed him back and threw a big feast. He killed the fattened calf, the one you've been saving for a special day." The older brother's face darkened. He came back. After all he did. After wasting our father's money on sinful living? And now we celebrate him? He clenched his fists. His jaw tightened. "No," he said flatly. "I'm not going in." Inside the house, the music played. The father danced with joy, holding his younger son by the shoulder. The house was full of celebration. But then a servant whispered into the father's ear. "Your older son, he's outside. He refuses to come in." The father paused. His joy didn't fade, but his heart grew heavy again. He walked out into the yard and found his firstborn standing under a tree, arms crossed, eyes full of pain. "My son," the father said gently. "Come in. Join us. Your brother is home." But the older son didn't move. "Father," he said through clenched teeth, "all these years, I've served you. I never disobeyed. I worked hard. I stayed. I was loyal. And yet, you never gave me a party. Not even a small goat to celebrate with my friends." His voice rose with anger. "But now, this son of yours, who wasted your money with sinful living, he comes back, and you throw a feast? You kill the fattened calf." The father stepped closer and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "My son," he said softly, "you are always with me. Everything I have is yours. You've never been forgotten. I love you deeply." The older son's eyes dropped to the ground, his anger slowly turning into silent tears. "But listen," the father continued, "your brother was lost, and now he is found. He was dead, and now he lives. Shouldn't we rejoice?" The older son didn't answer at first. His heart battled between justice and mercy, between pride and compassion. He looked at his father, still the same kind man who had raised them both with love. Then he looked toward the house, warm light, music, food, laughter. And in that moment, he understood something. The celebration wasn't about what his brother had done. It was about who he still was, a son. And so was he. Moral lesson. Have you ever made a mistake so big that you thought there was no way back? Maybe you felt like you disappointed someone you love, or even yourself. Maybe you've walked away from what's right, thinking you were chasing freedom, only to find emptiness at the end. If so, you're not alone. The story of the lost son is a story for all of us. It's about a young man who thought he knew what he wanted. He demanded his inheritance and walked away from home, confident, proud, and full of dreams. But when the money ran out, so did his friends. He hit rock bottom. And in his brokenness, he remembered where he came from. He remembered the love of a father who had never stopped caring for him. That memory gave him the courage to return. But here's the part that touches the heart the most. The father wasn't waiting with anger. He wasn't standing there with crossed arms and a list of punishments. He was watching with hope. He was ready to forgive, not because the son earned it, but because he loved him. That's the message. No matter how far you've gone, no matter what mistakes you've made, you can always come home. God's love isn't based on what you've done right. It's based on who you are, his child. And maybe you see yourself more in the older brother. You've been doing the right things, staying faithful, working hard, but bitterness has crept into your heart. You wonder why it feels like no one notices your faithfulness. You may feel forgotten or even angry when others are celebrated. That's a real struggle. But don't let your pride rob you of joy. Don't let comparison steal the beauty of grace. Forgiveness is powerful, but so is mercy. And sometimes the hardest people to forgive are those who didn't just hurt us, they disappointed us. The older brother needed to learn that grace wasn't just for the one who returned, it was also for the one who stayed. This story teaches us that both sons were lost in their own ways. One ran away. The other stayed but grew cold. And yet the father loved them both. He wanted both at the table. That's what God wants for us too. So wherever you are right now, whether you've drifted far or just feel distant in your heart, know this. You are not too far gone. You are not forgotten. You are deeply loved. Come home. Forgive others. Let yourself be forgiven. Reconnect. Rebuild. Return to love. Because in the end, the greatest thing we can ever do is love like the Father. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to reflect. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're ready to grow in grace and truth, subscribe for more powerful Bible stories like this one. Let's walk this journey of faith together.